Hello and welcome to the International Daily Roundup by People's Dispatch, where we bring you some of the major news developments from across the world. We begin with Brazil, where federal prosecutors are targeting journalist Glenn Greenwald for cybercrimes. Glenn Greenwald is accused of being involved in the hacking of communications related to the jet leak scandal between Brazil's current Justice Minister Sergio Moro and the federal prosecutor's office. This high-profile case is linked to the false charges which led to the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff and the incarceration of former President Lula da Silva. We discussed this with Anish. Anish, thanks for joining us. So Greenwald was in the news for most of the last year because The Intercept, the organization which he founded, was releasing a series of reports. And these reports were very damning regarding... So could you just, for context, elaborate on what these articles in The Intercept talked about and how they basically demolished the case against Lula?
Well, to put it concisely, the actual leaks just spoke about a massive conspiracy behind the bag, where the judge himself was compromised and was actually leading the prosecution. Now, the judge is Sergio Moro, and he used to be
current justice minister.
He's current justice minister under Bolsonaro, and he was the prosecutor on the case and then became the judge. I mean, we obviously have spoken in our website about how questionable this was, of course, and then he was the one who convicted Lula right before the elections were supposed to happen. So that was nothing opportune. Everybody pointed out that there must have been a political color to it. So one of the things that the leaks did was to vindicate supporters of Lula and everybody who worked for the press who actually spoke about this matter in Brazil, and were not really believed because the word corruption was used far more than it was supposed to.
Right. So basically this was, what you're saying is that how the corruption was used to conceal the fact that this was definitely a political campaign against Lula, with specifically the intention to make sure that he did not contest the elections.
Exactly. When we look at it at the hindsight, and because the data that is now available in public right now, it actually shows that there was a massive political campaign against the government, against Dilma's government, and also against Lula's candidacy, which was shown as this one person who was who was out there to clean up the corrupt Brazilian political system. He was called the Superman and all of that. And but despite all of that, many did look through the obvious when he became the justice minister, and it was very obvious thing why he was done that. And now we have evidence, proper evidence to prove that he was not what he seemed to be. He was not somebody who was impartial, but it went ahead more than that. It actually pointed out that he was leading the prosecution, giving them pointers, telling them where to look for evidence, telling them who are to be questioned, who are to be targeted, including Lula's wife, his friends, and in the manner in which the judge was leading a case, it was something very... the fact that it was allowed to happen is something tragic to begin with, but the fact that it happened and it has become the defining character for much of 2016 to 2018, where the entire political scandal just panned out, was something that came out.
And the current charge of hacking against Bolsonaro, against Greenwald. So in some ways there is a very obvious similarity to what is happening with Julian Assange also, because the charges sound very similar. But in the Brazilian context, what is likely to happen with these charges?
The charges right now are to be decided by the judge whether or not Greenwald stands to be indicted, because the evidence that they are supposedly breaking up is that Greenwald asked the so-called hackers, or who are charged to be hackers, to delete the messages, to delete the conversations that they have had with him. Which is not something like anybody who has been in the journalistic profession knows, that when you're talking to your source, you wouldn't want to keep traces, especially if it's sensitive. Now, that is not the problem here. The problem goes beyond that. It's a matter of the rights of the publisher, because Greenwald at the end of the day just published the leaks. He did not really orchestrate anything, so far as we know, and the fact that even the prosecutors are not able to show that apart from this one innocuous message, is something that can have significant repercussions. And it is, as you said, quite very similar to Assange's case, where the publisher is being prosecuted. And this, obviously, people like Greenwald and Assange are people who are in the periphery of the media space. They are alternative media, so you wouldn't have mainstream media being so vocal about it. But the fact that it will also end up affecting them should be more concerning for democracies everywhere.
Thank you, Anish. We move on to our next story, where Israeli Defense Forces shot dead 3 young Palestinian men on January 21st, Tuesday, alleging that they were attempting to cross the Gaza border and enter the country. The Israeli army also claimed, without providing any evidence, that the 3 men threw an explosive device at the Israeli soldiers and that fire was opened in response. The Gaza Strip has been under a brutal Israeli air, sea and land blockade since 2006, when the Palestinian resistance group Hamas assumed control. The Israeli public radio announced that the 3 Palestinians had entered into Israel from the central Gaza Strip earlier and claimed that they had penetrated 400 meters into Israel under the cover of stormy weather. However, there was no clear evidence provided for the same. Responding to the news of the killings on Tuesday, a police source in Gaza disputed the Israeli version of events. According to Middle East Eye, this source claimed that the 3 Palestinians killed were civilians and not militants with links to any armed resistance groups. He also told Reuters news agency that 2 of the youths were 18 years old and the third was only 17. The 3 have been identified as Mohammad Hani Abu Mandil, Salim Zuwaid Al-Nami and Mahmoud Khalid Said. International Middle East Media Center also reported, citing several local Palestinian sources inside Gaza, that the 3 Palestinian men were ordered to remove their clothes before they were killed, thus proving beyond doubt that they were not militants of any sort or a threat to Israeli soldiers. That's all we have in this episode of the International Daily Roundup. To know more about these stories, visit our website peoplesdispatch.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for watching.
Cantar que vamos a triunfar, avanza ya.